1944, South Pacific. Solomon Islands, Russell Islands. 1st Marine Division, 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, United States Marine Corps. The record reads, Patrol Mission, Routine Reconnaissance, Target Island codenamed Hardtack. 3 hours later, the 7-man team failed to return. The next day, a full-strength infantry platoon was sent to search. They brought back 2 men, one on a stretcher, burning with fever, pupils blown, repeating the same word over and over. The other could still stand, but from that day on never again gave a complete account of what happened in the jungle. Until 50 years later, in a hospice ward, he spoke to a civilian historian who specialized in non-standard combat losses and told the following. I'm the one telling this story. There's no background music, no jump cuts, just a buried record, and a truth that was never written into any official war history. March 1944. The tempo in the Pacific Theater had already shifted. The Guadalcanal campaign had just wrapped up. Japanese forces were pulling back, but their will to resist was far from broken. The Russell Islands, 2 main islands, rings of coral reef, plus a scatter of nameless dots on the map, were taken by the Allies as a forward base for the next push north. Most of the islands had already been swept clean. No large enemy presence, no heavy fortifications. On paper, it was a safe zone, but safe is a joke in war. Our job in 1st Recon was simple. Infiltrate, observe, confirm. Before the main force landed, we were to check every spot that might hide a Japanese observation post or a covert supply cache. Hardtack Island. Locals barely went there before the war. Small, wrapped tight in mangroves and overgrown tropical jungle, surrounded by reefs that made landing difficult. Intelligence said there was no indication of Japanese deployment, but confirm no enemy presence was our responsibility. 7 men, me, Sergeant Richardson, Radio Man Baker, Scouts Malloy, Sanchez Cole, and our interpreter and guide, a local coast watcher named Vianney. Standard recon team, light, fast in and out. We carried 30 carbines, grenades, med kits, 2 days rations, 1 radio. No mortars, no heavy machine guns, no planned fire support, because we didn't need it. Intelligence said there was nothing there. Looking back now, the biggest mistake of my career wasn't underestimating the enemy. It was overestimating intelligence. That's something I say 30 years retired. But back then, 23-year-old Sergeant Richardson believed every word of the briefing. We landed before dawn. The boat skirted the reef and came ashore on a narrow strip of sand on the island's west side. The water was shallow. We jumped out and sank past our knees in a black mud. The smell was wrong. Not the usual salty tang of seawater. Something thicker, heavier. Rot. Like something massive had been decaying deep in the jungle for a long time and never cleared away. I signaled, and the team spread into a search formation, moving inland. First 20 minutes, nothing. Standard jungle. Buttress roots, vines, leeches, humidity so thick it felt like your lungs were filling with water. We cut through a patch of low palms, Malloy up front with a machete, Sanchez on the flank. I stayed center. Baker followed me with the radio. Cole brought up the rear. Vianney was 2 steps to my left, scanning the tree line. Tenser than I had ever seen him on any patrol. I asked him once, Vianney, you've been here before? He didn't answer. About 10 seconds later, he said something I didn't think much of at the time. There are no birds here. I stopped and listened. He was right. No birds. No insects. No monkeys moving in the canopy. On any tropical island in the Pacific, jungle noise is a constant wall of white noise. But once you notice it's gone, the silence becomes wrong. Not the quiet before a storm. Something closer to death. I halted the team and gave a brief sitrep. Baker set up the radio, adjusted frequencies, tried to reach battalion. Static, sharp, ugly, but no response. Could have been terrain, sunspot activity, or something else. In the Pacific, radio's cutting in, and I was normal. Nobody raises an alarm over 1 failed contact. I decided to keep moving. We entered a mangrove zone. Roots like giant fingers rose out of black mud, tangled into a warped colonnade. The light dimmed. Not dusk, just the canopy shutting out the sky. The air turned viscous. Every breath felt like inhaling something with weight. The hygrometer would have been useless. You didn't need it. Your skin told you. The air here was pressing on you in a way it shouldn't. I noticed something. Goosebumps along my forearms. Not from cold. Daytime in the South Pacific runs over 30 degrees Celsius, humidity near 90%. You don't feel cold, but that chill rising from the base of your spine had nothing to do with temperature. Something deeper. Your body telling you are entering a place you shouldn't be. We moved on another 15 minutes. The ground firmed up. Mangroves thinned, replaced by tall trees I didn't recognize. Dark gray trunks, bark like overlapping scales. Light improved a little, but ahead, deeper inland, it was still a dense, impenetrable dark green. That's when Malloy stopped. Fist up, the team froze. I moved forward, followed his line of sight. The ground had been disturbed. Not like an animal digging, more deliberate. A trench, about 3 feet wide, running from deeper in the jungle to our feet, then bending left and disappearing behind brush. Wooden stakes lined the sides, sharpened, set at odd angles. Not defensive, more like markers. I crouched and scraped away loose soil with the tip of my knife. The dirt underneath was dark, almost black, with a wet, oily sheen. I leaned in and smelled it. The rot was stronger, not just decomposing flesh, more complex, sickly sweet. If you spend enough time in combat, you know what human bodies smell like in tropical decay. This wasn't that. Heavier, thicker, like something seeping, not something that had simply rotted. Vianney stepped beside me, looked down at the trench. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I asked what was wrong. He looked at me, and I've remembered that look for 50 years. It wasn't fear. It was something older. The kind of unease that seeps out of your bones when you realize you're standing somewhere you shouldn't be. He said, "Sergeant, I think we should go back." I asked why. He didn't answer directly. He looked toward the direction the trench came from and said, "They're warning us not to go in." They who? He didn't explain. He was just a local coast watcher, worked for the British before the Japanese came, then for the Allies after. He knew these islands far better than we did, kids from the Midwest and the East Coast. That day, he chose silence. Maybe he figured we wouldn't believe him. Maybe he thought saying it out loud would bring something bad with it. I made a decision. I replayed it for 50 years. Every night, when I close my eyes, I see it again. I chose to keep going. Not because I didn't trust Vianney, because I was a recon sergeant, and my job was to confirm there were no enemy forces on that island, and I hadn't done that yet. If you turn back over a strange trench and a bad smell, how does battalion see you? Your CO? More importantly, how do you see yourself? War trains you into a machine. Machines don't have instincts, don't have unease, don't pull back before the logic is complete. I pushed that cold, rising from my spine back down and signaled forward. Now I know, that was my first mistake. The second came about 15 minutes after we entered that stand of tall trees. We started noticing markings on the trunks. Not natural knots or scars, deliberate pattern cuts. 3 slashes with an arc above them, like a symbol. At first we thought they might be Japanese recon marks, but I ruled that out quickly. The Japanese used systematic signs and codes, usually pointing to water, routes, or defensive positions. These didn't point to anything. They just were, carved into the bark from ground level up as high as you could see, layer upon layer. Dense. Malloy stepped up to one of the trees and ran his hand over the marks. "Sergeant," he said, "this wasn't done with a blade." I took a look. The edges weren't sharp. They were worn smooth, like something had rubbed them over and over. Not man-made, or not made by human tools. Deeper in the grooves was something dark green. Looked like moss, but up close, it wasn't plant matter. No cellular structure. More like residue. Something that had soaked in and dried. Baker spoke up. His voice was low, but in that birdless jungle, every word hit like a stone in water. "Sergeant, radio's completely dead." I told him to try again. He did. Nothing. Not interference. Not static. Just absolute absence. Like part of the island had been cut out of the electromagnetic spectrum. That should have been my second signal to turn back. I didn't. We kept moving deeper. The light kept fading. The air kept thickening. The smell of rot grew stronger. Strong enough that you could taste it. That sickly sweetness started coating your tongue and throat like spoiled sugar. I began to feel a strange kind of exhaustion, not physical. My muscles weren't sore, my breathing was steady, my heart rate normal. But there was a weariness rising from deep in my bones, like something was draining the energy out of me. Cole shouted from the rear. We turned. He pointed back the way we'd come. The path we'd cut through the brush gone. Not overgrown. The ground itself had been turned over like something had pushed up from beneath, replacing the soil and erasing our tracks completely. The terrain had changed. In less than 15 minutes, the route we came in on had been reshaped by something we couldn't explain. I started doing the math. We had enough water, enough food, plenty of ammo. But in a tropical jungle, if you lose your sense of direction, none of that matters. I pulled out my compass. The needle was turning, slowly, continuously, not jittering, rotating with an almost graceful motion. One full circle, then another, like the second hand of a clock, but without any pattern. Sanchez said something I've never forgotten. "Sergeant, a compass doesn't spin like that. Not unless there's something under it. Something under it." I didn't know what that meant. What I didn't know was that, at that moment, my team started showing something I had never seen in combat personnel before. Not fear, not panic, something slower, diffuse, a creeping numbness, a growing urge to just sit down, a sense that none of this really mattered anymore. I'd seen shell shock. I'd seen rookies collapse under their first artillery barrage. But that's violent, explosive. This was different, quiet, patient, almost gentle. It was stripping away our will to fight, piece by piece, making us docile, sluggish, indifferent to whether we made it out alive. That was the first engagement. No explosion, no gunfire, no enemy you could shoot back at. This was environmental, a systematic breakdown of your most basic perceptions. I forced myself to stay sharp. I barked orders, pulled everyone together, checked gear, reassessed. I had Baker try the radio again. Nothing. I had Malloy climb the nearest tall tree, see if he could get a view of the island, the coastline, anything. Malloy got about 20 feet up, then stopped. He didn't say anything, just froze there, one hand gripping the trunk, body locked in place. I called up to him. No response. Louder. He slowly turned his head and looked down at me. There was no fear on his face. It was something I had never seen in combat. Total understanding. Complete. He had seen something above the canopy or farther out, and whatever it was had shown him things he wasn't meant to know. His eyes were open, but his pupils had shrunk to pinpoints, like he was staring into a blinding light. Except the sky was overcast, and under the canopy it was closer to dusk. Malloy started climbing down. Slow, mechanical, like rusted machinery. When he hit the ground, he walked straight up to me and said, "Sergeant, this island isn't an island." I asked him what that meant. He said, "There's something under us. It's big, and it's moving." I thought he meant an earthquake. Pacific Islands get those, sure, but this area wasn't in an active zone. Before I could press him, his eyes snapped back into focus. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he asked, "When did we get here?" I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He had no memory of anything after we entered that stand of trees. He remembered the landing, the mangroves, even the trench. But after that, blank. He climbed the tree, saw something, and whatever he saw erased a segment of his memory, leaving behind only a vague impression. Big. Moving. That was the false lull after the first contact. We kept moving. Though moving forward wasn't accurate anymore, we had no direction. We were just walking. Toward something. Toward the center, maybe, or being led. You'd ask, why not turn back? Because there was no way back. The terrain had changed. Every reference point we had was gone. The tree Malloy climbed. Within 3 minutes of him speaking, it disappeared from view. Not because we moved away, but because we stood there and watched it get swallowed by something like a rising haze. Yeah, fog. In the middle of the day, in a South Pacific jungle. Over 30 degrees, 90% humidity, and fog rolled in. Not ground fog. It came down from the canopy. A thin, gray-white veil descending slowly from above. There was no wind, but the fog moved anyway. Not drifting, flowing. Like something alive. Like it had intent, spreading from high to low. When it touched my skin, it stung. Not like an allergy. Not like insect bites. Something finer. Like microscopic particles suspended in the air, settling onto your skin and reacting with it. A numbness spread. Not sharp, deep. Like anesthetic. Your face started to feel unfamiliar, like you were experiencing the world through someone else's skin. Sanchez started coughing. Not dry, wet, heavy, rising from deep in his lungs. Every cough carried that same sweet, rotten taste. He went for about 30 seconds, then bent over, hands on his knees, gasping. Something was wrong with his color. Not pale, gray-green. Like something chemical was happening inside him. I stepped over, lifted his face, shined a flashlight into his eyes. Sounds stupid, using a flashlight in daylight, but under that green dim canopy, you needed it. His pupils reacted normally, but there was something on his conjunctiva, thin strands, dark red, like burst capillaries, but not ruptured, growing. Something was spreading across the surface of his eyes. Vianti suddenly spoke, in his native language. I didn't understand it, but I knew it wasn't something he'd say in a normal state. His voice had changed, lower, heavier. There was a resonance to it, like his vocal cords were producing two frequencies at once. I said, "Vianti, what are you saying?" He turned and looked at me. His eyes were normal. In that moment, they were completely normal, and in a voice that was calm, clearer than I'd ever heard him. He said, "Sergeant, this island will remember you." I said, "What?" He said, "Your bones, your teeth, everything in you that doesn't rot. It will remember. It remembers everyone who's ever been here." Then his eyes changed. His pupils dilated, fast, until they nearly swallowed the iris. In that gray-green light, they looked like two bottomless pits. His body started to shake violently. Not shivering, full-body convulsions. He dropped to the ground, teeth chattering, white foam spilling from his mouth. I lunged forward and pinned him down, yelling for Cole to grab a tongue depressor from the med kit and wedge it into his mouth so he wouldn't bite his tongue off. Baker and Sanchez closed in. Malloy raised his rifle and covered us. It all happened in 30 seconds. 30 seconds from a conscious, speaking man to a body convulsing on the ground. Then it stopped. Not gradually, just stopped. Like someone flipped a switch. Total, immediate stillness. He opened his eyes. His pupils were normal again. He looked at me and said, "They're here." I asked, "Who's here?" He didn't answer. His gaze went past my shoulder, deeper into the jungle ahead. I turned to follow it. I saw them. It wasn't a hallucination, not a trick of light, not jungle fever. I saw something real, something that formed a clear image on my retina, one that has replayed the exact same way every time I've remembered it. Deep in the jungle, between the shadows of those gray-green trees, something was standing there. They were shaped like people, upright, 2 legs, a torso, arms ahead. But the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, hanging almost to the knees. Legs too short. The torso stretched. The whole silhouette was off in a way that hit you on an instinctive level. Their skin was dark gray, not human, not fur, not scales, more like bark or weathered stone. Their heads had no visible features, but you could feel them looking, not with eyes, with the entire surface of that smooth, almost oval shape. I could feel that gaze, not metaphorically, not figuratively. It was a real, measurable pressure on my skin, like light, like a hand. It made every hair on my arm stand up, made my scalp prickle, turned my stomach like I was about to vomit. How many? I couldn't tell. The way they moved between the trees wasn't walking. It was closer to appearing from one place to another. Not teleporting, not exactly skipping frames. Something in between, something I don't have words for. You try to track one, and it slides smooth, continuous, but somehow impossible behind another tree and doesn't come back out. Another one grows into your peripheral vision, like a mushroom pushing out of damp wood. Slow, but inevitable. Malloy opened fire. He wasn't the kind of man who panics. Grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, hunting deer since he was 16. He knew what eyes looked like in the dark. He wasn't afraid of forests. But he fired, raised his carbine, and emptied a full magazine at the closest one. The shots cracked through the birdless jungle. Too loud, wrong somehow. Like the sound had been compressed, warped. It didn't disperse, it got swallowed. Absorbed by the jungle like a black hole, eating sound. The bullets hit trees, vines, dirt. None of them hit those things. Not because Malloy missed, but because those things weren't where the bullets went. You aim center mass, squeeze the trigger, and in the milliseconds it takes for the round to travel, the thing is no longer there. Not fast, just not there. Like it knew the trajectory ahead of time. Or worse, like it controlled something along that trajectory. I yelled, "Cease fire." Malloy stopped. His hands were shaking, not fear. Something physiological, like his nervous system was being interfered with. Baker suddenly screamed. I turned. He was crouched on the ground, hands clamped over his head. The radio slipped off his back and fell into the mud. His eyes were squeezed shut, lips moving fast like he was reciting something. I grabbed his hands, pulled them away, asked what was wrong. He opened his eyes. Something was coming out of them. Not tears. Tears are clear. This was cloudy, pale yellow, thick, carrying that same sweet, rotten smell we'd been breathing all along. It ran down his face, dripped onto his collar, onto the back of my hand. The moment it touched my skin, it burned. Not mild, intense. Like acid. I jerked my hand away, but the burning didn't stop. It sank deeper, turning into a steady, penetrating pain that climbed up my arm. Cole rushed over, flushed my hand with saline from the med kit. The pain dulled, but it didn't go away. A mark stayed behind, reddish brown. Not a bruise. Deeper, like something had seeped into the dermis, and started reacting with my tissue. Vianney stood up. The way he stood wasn't right. Not pushing himself up with muscle, more like something lifted him. His body rose almost straight, joints barely bending, like a puppet on strings. His face was blank, not expressionless, emptied, like everything that made him a person had been taken out, leaving a shell. He started speaking, but it wasn't his voice. Lower, much lower than his normal range. You could feel it in your chest, like standing next to a drum. And it wasn't English, not his native language, not any human language. It was structured, repeating syllables, like a code, like commands. His lips moved, but his eyes were closed. That's when the silence broke. Not birds, not insects. A sound came from everywhere at once, from the ground, from the canopy, from the air itself. A low-frequency hum, so low you could barely hear it, but your bones could. Your skull vibrated. Your teeth rattled. Your heart started beating out of rhythm, too fast, then too slow, like your autonomic system was being hijacked by an external signal. Then we heard footsteps. Not from those things. They moved without sound. These came from behind us, the direction we'd come from, where the terrain had changed. Heavy, rhythmic, something big walking on two legs, each step sinking into mud with a wet, dull impact. Not one, many. We turned, raised our weapons. The fog was thicker now, gray-white, pouring down from the canopy like a silent waterfall. At the edge of it, we saw shapes. Not the thin, distorted ones. These were bigger, broader, closer to human proportions, but much larger. 7 feet, maybe 8, wide shoulders, heads set too high, like something had stretched them upward. They didn't glide, they walked. Heavy, real. Each step made the ground tremble. Sanchez started gasping, not from exertion. The sweet, rotten air had gotten so thick it felt like he was suffocating. His lips turned blue-purple. His eyes rolled back. I grabbed his vest, yanked him toward me, slapped his face hard to keep him conscious. Then Baker's radio came alive. No signal, no power. We tried over and over. And suddenly, clear white noise. Then a sound, not a human voice. Modulated, structured, full of information, but outside the range of human speech. It spanned frequencies you could hear, feel, and somehow perceive through bone conduction all at once. It lasted about 10 seconds. Then it cut off. Silence again. That's when Cole broke. He threw his rifle, not set it down, threw it like it was burning him. It hit the mud and sank. He dropped to a crouch, clutching his head, and started crying. Not quiet tears. Full body sobbing. Raw. Violent. A man who had made it through Poliliu without shedding a tear was now crying like a 5-year-old in the mud. I went to him, crouched in front of him, shouted, "Cole, look at me." He lifted his head. His eyes had no focus. Like glass. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then he raised a hand and pointed forward into the fog. His finger shook, but the gesture was clear. I followed it. The fog was parting. Not blown away, pulled aside. Like hands drawing open a curtain. Slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial, revealing a clearing behind it. Perfectly circular. You don't see perfect circles in nature. The trees at the edge weren't growing that way. They'd been forced, bent outward, their trunks leaning away like they'd been pushed back by something immense. The ground inside was bare. No grass, no leaves, just a layer of deep black, smooth, almost glass-like material. Like something had been melted at extreme heat and then cooled. And in the exact center of that clearing, there was something there. It wasn't one of the thin ones. It wasn't whatever was making those heavy footsteps. It was something else. Something older. Quieter. It wasn't large, about the size of a man's fist, but its presence was overwhelming. Deep red, not bright red, almost black, like dried blood compressed to its densest form. Its surface wasn't smooth. It had texture, not carved but grown like the surface of something organic. It was pulsing, not beating, pulsing, like a heart, but much slower, about once every 10 seconds. And with each pulse came a low-frequency shockwave, radiating outward from the center, passing through your body, through the trees, through the entire island. In that moment, I understood what Vianney meant. This island will remember you. This wasn't an island. It was something vast, alive, aware, lying beneath the Pacific since before recorded time. Part of its body broke the surface, and we labeled it Hardtack Island on a map. The mangroves, the trees, the vines, the mud, they were surface growth. Like hair, like skin, we were walking on it, breathing what it exhaled. Every footprint we made pressed into its outer layer. Those thin things, the ones making the heavy footsteps, they weren't separate life forms. They were parts of it. Its immune system, its sensory organs, its scavengers. When it detected foreign bodies, 7 men in camouflage, carrying metal weapons, sweating, smelling wrong, it activated a response. The fog was digestive enzyme. The sweet rot in the air was metabolic byproduct. The compass malfunction was its bioelectric field. The radio silence was electromagnetic interference. Vianney's convulsions, the fluid from Baker's eyes, Sanchez struggling to breathe, Cole breaking down, all of it immune response. It wasn't malicious. It didn't have a concept of malice. It was just removing contaminants, like white blood cells attacking bacteria. We weren't soldiers. We were pathogens. Malloy raised his carbine, but not at the creatures. At the red, pulsing thing. I said, Malloy, don't. He said, Sergeant, if that thing's the brain, we take it out, the whole system shuts down. I said, you don't know that. He said, no. But if we don't do something, we die here. I didn't stop him. I didn't stop him because I didn't know if he was wrong. Maybe by then I didn't believe we were getting out alive. Maybe I was just too tired. That bone-deep exhaustion finally breaking me. Maybe that thing had already made me compliant. Malloy pulled the trigger. The instant the bullet left the barrel, the world changed. Not metaphorically. Literally. Color changed. The green of the jungle shifted into something I had never seen. Not gray, not blue, something outside what human vision is meant to perceive. Space changed. Distances warped. Things close stretched infinitely far. Things far away felt within reach. Time changed. The gunshot didn't fade. It stretched, an endless note vibrating inside your skull. The bullet struck the red thing. It didn't explode. It split. A crack formed across its surface from center to edge. And from that crack, light poured out. Not reflected, not emitted. Light itself, with mass, with heat, flowing like liquid, spilling across the ground, climbing tree trunks, rising into the air, staining the fog gold. Then the sound came. Not the low hum from before. Everything. A full spectrum roar. Like 1,000 waterfalls in your ears. Like 10,000 people screaming. Like the core of the earth tearing open. It didn't travel through air. It came up through the ground, through your feet, your knees, your spine, slamming into your skull. Every cell in my body vibrated. My teeth rattled in my gums. My eyes shook in their sockets. I dropped on my knees. Not by choice. My legs just stopped working. Everyone around me went down. Everyone except Malloy. He was still standing, still holding the carbine, staring at the light pouring from that crack. And he was smiling, smiling. It was the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. Not evil, not madness. Joy. Complete, absolute, total joy. Like a child seeing snow for the first time. Like a drowning man finally letting go. Malloy disappeared inside that smile. Not died, disappeared. He stopped being Malloy. Stopped being the kid from North Carolina who hunted deer at 16. Stopped being the most reliable man in my unit. He became part of that light, part of that sound, part of that thing. His body began to come apart. Not exploding, not burning, dissolving, from the edges inward, like a painting soaking in water. His outline blurred. His skin lost its boundary. His body dispersed into the air. Countless tiny, glowing particles, absorbed, swallowed, assimilated into the golden light. I closed my eyes. I thought I was going to die. I thought we all were. I didn't. When I opened my eyes again, the light was gone. The sound was gone. The fog was gone. The jungle had its color back. That wet, deep green of a Pacific island. Birds. I heard birds. Insects. I heard insects. The air smelled normal. Earth after rain, salt from the sea. Sanchez was on my left, breathing. Cole on my right, breathing. Baker face down in the mud. Radio still on his back, antenna bent but alive. Vianney leaned against a tree root, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. Malloy was gone. I stood up. My legs shook, but they held. I looked around. We were at the edge of a mangrove line. Mud flat behind us. Ocean ahead. Less than 200 yards away, I saw our landing boat, still where we left it. Bow facing out to sea, like it had been waiting. I don't remember how we got there. I don't remember anything between that clearing and the mangroves. There's a hole in my memory. Clean. Complete. Like something surgically removed. I walked to the boat. Sanchez followed. Cole behind him. Baker behind Cole. Vianney behind Baker. 5 men. Not 7. We got in. Started the engine. Left the beach. No one spoke. No one looked back. About 200 yards out, Baker said, "Radio's got signal." No one answered. We didn't go straight back to battalion. We stopped at an outpost off the main island. Sanchez and I carried Vianney on a stretcher, still feverish, pupils blown, still repeating that word. I tried to look it up later. Couldn't find it in any native language. It wasn't a word. It was a frequency, a vibration, something compressed into syllables. Command came to meet us. Intel officer, ops officer, a major. They separated us for questioning. 5 hours. 3 pots of coffee. The same question, over and over. What did you encounter? My answer never changed. We don't remember. It wasn't a lie. I don't remember. My memory cuts off the moment Malloy pulled the trigger. Like tape erased from a reel. I have fragments. A red thing. Light. A sound. Malloy smiling. Nothing else. No, not nothing. There's one more thing. On the back of my right hand, where the fluid from Baker's eyes burned me, there's a mark. Reddish brown. It's been 50 years. It's still there. Dermatologists looked at it, said it was some kind of unexplained pigmentation, suggested removing it. I didn't. I don't know why. The battalion's conclusion was this. We had encountered a remnant Japanese unit using a chemical agent, an unknown hallucinogen, likely dispersed in a mist. Vianney was diagnosed with a tropical neuropsychiatric disorder and sent to a rear hospital. I never saw him again. Baker's eyes returned to normal, but from that day on he needed a light on sleep. Cole was reassigned to the rear and never went on another frontline patrol. Sanchez was shot in the leg during the Battle of Okinawa. After the war, he went back to Texas and opened a hardware store. We wrote to each other occasionally, but we never mentioned that island. Malloy was listed as missing in action, presumed dead. His parents in North Carolina receive a letter signed by a general telling them their son had died heroically during a critical reconnaissance mission, making an indelible contribution to Allied victory in the South Pacific. No letter could tell the truth, because the truth isn't in any archive. The truth isn't a mark on the back of my right hand that never fades. The truth isn't Baker's nightlight. The truth is in Cole's post-war diagnosis, anxiety disorder, and the 10 years he spent in a psychiatric hospital before he died. The truth is in Vianney's mouth, in that sentence no one can translate, the one he brought back from the jungle. Years after the war, I try to look into that island. The Russell Islands, hardtack, is just a dot. No geographer ever studied it in detail. No archaeologist ever went there. No anthropologist ever sat down with locals to ask about its stories. Naval hydrographic data shows anomalous seafloor structures around it, sonar readings that don't match any known geological model. A 1962 Ocean Survey report includes a footnote, significant magnetic anomalies recorded in this area. Further study recommended. There was no further study. I found a local man, not Vianney, another coast watcher, an old man who stayed on with the British colonial administration after the war. I bought him beer, a lot of beer. Then I showed him my hand. He stared at the mark for a long time. Then he said, "You shouldn't have gone there. You weren't the first. You won't be the last." I asked, "Others have been there before." He said, "A long time ago. Soldiers. Not yours. Earlier. Different uniforms. Different weapons. They didn't come back either. The island kept them." I asked, "Kept what?" He said, "The parts that don't rot. Bones. Teeth. Metal. Your guns. Your boots. Your radios. They're still there. Maybe someday someone will find them. Maybe not. The island won't care. I asked, what is that island? He looked me in the eyes. His eyes were dark brown, deep, like wells. You have your God, he said. We have ours. Some things were here before God came. Maybe they'll still be here after he's gone. I'm 93 now. As I write this, my hands are shaking. Not because I'm old, but because I'm still afraid. 75 years later, I'm still afraid. Not of death. I've seen death too many times for it to be unfamiliar. I'm afraid because on that island, I saw a boundary, a line that shouldn't be crossed. As human beings, as thinking, feeling, loving, hating, praying beings, how much are we allowed to know? How much are we allowed to see? That island gave me an answer, far less than you think. Malloy disappeared in that smile. To this day, I don't know if he was destroyed, transformed, or absorbed into something beyond our understanding. Sometimes in my dreams, I still see him. He stands in that golden light, smiling at me. Not that terrible smile. The way he used to smile, back in the mountains of North Carolina, coming home from a fall hunt. Quiet, content. Like he's telling me he doesn't regret it. Like he's telling me it isn't all darkness there. I don't know if I should believe him. That's my story. A story that never made it into any official war record. A story I chose to tell after 75 years of silence, at the edge of death. Not to be believed, just to be remembered. Because if you don't remember things like this, they disappear. And if they disappear, no one knows where the line is. The line we're not meant to cross. I want to ask you one question. Just one. When you hear a sound in the night that doesn't belong to any known animal, when your compass starts spinning in a place with no iron, when you walk into a forest and realize all the birds have gone silent, do you keep going or do you turn around and run? If your answer is to keep going, one day you might meet Malloy. He'll be standing in that golden light, smiling at you. If your answer is to turn back, you might live a long time. You'll grow old. You'll carry a mark on the back of your hand that never fades. And every night when you close your eyes, you'll see that place again. Which is better? I don't know. All I know is the island is still there, somewhere in the Pacific, a nameless point on a map. Deep in mangroves and gray trees, there's a perfect circle. At its center, something split open. And inside that crack, the light is still flowing. If you ever go there, don't fire your weapon. Whatever you do, don't fire.